Hello everyone, welcome back to Next Dev School Lab, the channel that will make you a better developer. And today we're going to be talking about React.js, but we're going to be talking about the biggest problem that I ever faced with React.js, that are unnecessary re-renders. So today you are going to learn how to identify unnecessary re-renders and also how to fix them. But today I would like to bring to the stage the best React developer that I ever met, Nunli from Vancouver. So hi Nunli, how are you doing and how is your day doing so far?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Jose. Hi, everyone. My name is Nanli, and thanks, Jose, for inviting me to this channel. Yeah, I've been a front-end React developer since the very beginning of React. So I've experienced a lot of stuff in React, a lot of issues, a lot of pitfalls that I've faced. So today I would like to share some of these experiences with you guys. Hopefully, it will help you become a better React developer.
Okay, so the first question that I would like to ask you is, what do you understand about unnecessary re-renders?
Yeah, in React, when we define a state inside a component, that component automatically becomes like a subscriber or listener to the changes to that piece of state. So, so every time you change that state, the whole component will re-render. But when you re-render a component, all of its children, all the child components will also be re-rendered, and the children's children. So, so basically, starting from the parent node where the state is defined, all the subtree will be re-rendered when the state changes re-render.
Let me see if I got that. So let's suppose we have two components, one parent component and one child component. And if something change in the parent component, the child component will re-render if even has no change in their props or their state. Is that correct to affirm?
That actually depends on how you define your state. So by default, a React component does not have a memo feature. You have to use the React.memo specifically on a component to make your component memorize itself. What it means is that when you use React.memo, then next time if you send in to the component the same props, the component will not re-render. But if any of the props is different, then the component will re-render. But that only happens if you use React.memo.
Got it. All right. So could you please share a screen and let's go straight to the code and see, let's play around with this a little bit. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. So, okay. First of all, could you explain us what do you have in the screen?
Yeah, this is just a very simple demo. So we have here a parent component called app. And inside this component, we define two pieces of state. One, we call them A, the other we call them B. They're both numbers. And then when we render the parent component, we're going to render two child components. One is A, one is B. We send A and the setter of A to component A. We send B and the setter of B to component B. And then inside these two components is very simple. We just have a button, and then we call the setter to set the value that pass in. This is the same, but we have the console log in each of these components so that we can check when these components are actually re-rendered.
Okay. And so what is considered unnecessary re-render in that component?
Yeah. So you see, like when we click this button, we changed A, which means we didn't change B. So there's nothing changed in B, which means ideally the B component should not re-render. But if we click on it, we can see that both A and B are re-rendered. So in this case, the re-render of B is considered unnecessary.
Okay. All right. So if we add console.log in the components, we can identify unnecessary re-render, right? But now the question is, how can we solve this? So what would be the best approach for solving this? But before we go straight to the code, uh, why does it happen?
Yeah, the reason why it happens is that, so first of all, if we send the same values to the components, the component should not re-render because the props are the same. But in this case, when we change either value A or value B, then the parent component re-renders. This is normal. But when the parent component re-renders, you can see these two functions, they are actually redefined because we run it again, and this is, although it looks like the same, but this function is a whole new reference, basically a whole new object, a whole new function. It's doing the same thing, but it's a new one. So it returns a new memory address. So basically, the add A now is a new reference to that function.
Okay, so,
Which means
let me see if I got that. So every time the app re-render, when it goes to create this function, it will create the function in the memory and return a new reference for this one. Is that
that's
correct?
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so in the beginning you mentioned that we can add memo in the component. So if
Yeah.
by adding memo, react.memo in the component, does it fix the unnecessary render?
That would be the first step. So in this case, like React provide two hooks to help you fix this problem. One is use memo, the other is use callback. The difference between these two hooks is that when you use callback, you give the use callback a function, and then use callback will remember that function. And next time, if the dependency array, nothing in the dependency array changes, the use callback will just return the old function. If any of the values inside the dependency array changed, then the use callback will basically define or create a new function and return it. And the use memo is a little bit different. We also give a function to use memo, but that function will calculate a value. So it will return a value. So the use memo will basically remember the value of the result of the function you provide to it, not the function itself. So that's the only difference between use callback
Okay,
and
and
use memo.
one more thing about this. So use memo always execute the function. So if you use memo inside the render, use memo will run every re-render, but it will return the memoized value. Okay, so we are gonna get this on this in the end. So let's first add use callback to this
Yes.
function A
Yeah.
and B.
Yeah, let's first look at the how to use callback, because here we are trying to remember this function. So that's why we use callback. So we use callback, and then we give this function to use callback, but also we have to provide a dependency list. And let's first look at if we don't provide any values in the dependency list, what will happen? So in this case, use callback, the first time we render this component, use callback will first create this function and then remembers it. But this empty dependency list means that we will only do this once, never again. We will never recreate this function again. So that's kind of like fix our problems, because the problem we have with unnecessary render is that every time we have a new function, new reference of that function, right? But if we do that, every time it will be the same. So seems like the problem is solved, but it actually creates a bigger problem. And what is that? The problem is what we called staled props or staled state. And what it is that the first time we create this function, and then that function remembers the value of a. But because a is not the actual state, a is, but when you use this syntax, when you create when you use state to create a state, what it returns, the first part, is actually a copy of the underlying value. It's not the state itself. So that you can read this value, you can use this value, but it's just a copy. So if you try to change the value of a, nothing happens. So that's why you have to, when you want to change the value of a, you have to call the set a, because this will actually change the underlying state. But if you do anything with a, nothing will happen, because it's just a copy, which means the first time we create this function, we remember this copy, the value of a. So the next time, let's look at what will happen when we change the value a. So the first time it's changed to 4, but because this function will never be recreated, so the a is still the first a, which is 3, and it always be 3. So the next time, if we try to add it again, nothing happens, because it's still 3. So after we add it, it becomes 4 again. So when we click again, it's still 3 plus 1 equals 4. So it will never get past 4. That's because when a changes, we need to update this function. But we failed to do that because we didn't provide anything in the dependency list. So to fix that, we have to put a as a dependency for this use callback. What it means is that whenever a changes, we know, oh, now the old function is useless because it still contains the old value, right? So now we have to create a new function. So it will, because we create a new function, it will cause the re-render of a, but that's okay because we this time we changed a, so a should be re-rendered, right? So if we do that, let's refresh, and then if we change it, every time it changed, but you will see that every time we change a, both a and b re-renders. That's correct. But the problem, if we change b, let's refresh it again to make it clear. When we change b, a didn't change. A didn't change, and add a also didn't change. So in theory, the component a should not change.
Right? So this is the unnecessary re-render. So
yes.
One question. What happens with that function that we use, that we pass in the use callback? Every time the app's re-render, we are going to create a new reference, but what use callback will do is point and return to the previous reference. Is that correct?
Yes. So if a doesn't change, the use callback will first create a new function, but then you realize, hey, a didn't change. So I don't have to return the new reference. I will still return the old reference. But whenever a changes, the use callback will return the new reference.
But in the heap, we'll have two functions, right? But one will be garbage collector because they don't have any reference to that function.
Yes, because we define this function inline, which means every time we run this function, this component, we will create a new function, regardless, is in the heap.
But this is a problem with React.js, right? So we are gonna learn how to solve this. Yeah, this is one problem with React.js. All right, so move on. To avoid re-render A, what else we need to do?
Yes, there's only one step left. Now by use callback, we guarantee that when a doesn't change, the add a function will also not change, which means all the props on a do not change. So the final step is to make a memoized component. So we use React.memo to memoize component A. That means when the props are the same, this component will not re-render. So the combination of these two steps, first we use callback to make sure the add A function will remain the same when A doesn't change. And second, we use memo on the component A to make sure when the props don't change, we don't re-render A. So with the combination of these two steps, now finally, when we change B, A will not re-render.
That makes sense, because that is not, that's not a problem with React.js. This is a JavaScript stuff, right? So when we create functions and we pass an object or another function, we are passing reference and not the object itself. It's a reference. And that's why when we recreate the reference and pass it down, it will re-render because the reference just changed, right? And what use callback does is make sure that it's point to the same reference if the array of if the array of dependents haven't changed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're gonna learn more about JavaScript in the future. So if you want to learn more about JavaScript, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video if you are enjoying the content so far, okay? And give us the big fat thumbs up for this content and make a comment, because this is how we learn from you, okay? Let us know what you have in mind and what else you want to learn in this channel, okay? So coming back to you, all right, so let's repeat the same with B, and then this will solve the unnecessary render for B as well, right?
If we change A, we can see B does not re-render.
That's great. And if you hit B?
If we add B, A does not re-render.
Okay, that is great. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying this video. Okay, now we have one last challenge. We learn how to use callback, and we also learn how to use React.memo. But now we are gonna learn how to use memo. Okay, Nali. So could you repeat what use memo does?
Yeah. So use memo is very similar to use callback, but the difference is when we give use memo a function, instead of remembering the function itself, use memo will remember use memo will first run this function and then get a result, and then use memo will remember that result. So everything else will be the same. So because of this, when we use memo, usually it has two purposes. One purpose is that if the function, the calculation inside the function is very complicated, it takes a lot of time, then you can use memo to remember the result. So the next time, if the dependency list does not change, then we don't have to run that complicated function again. We can just simply return the result that's use memo already remembered. That's one of the purpose of use memo. The other purpose, it will be the same. So then, we can use memo to make sure the reference that's returned will be the same. And then this way we can guarantee when we pass it to a child component, the reference is still the same. Let's have a look at an example. Yeah. So for example, if we have a calculated value, for example, C, that is a plus 1, for example. So I'm going to make a object, and the reason for that is if it's a primitive value, then when we send it to the component, it will just check the value. So if the value are the same, it doesn't matter whether it's recalculated or not. As long as the value are the same, it will be considered the same value. So we don't have to do anything. But if this is an object, for example, an object contains a property called C, and C is a plus 1. Now, this will be a little bit different because every time we rerun this component, this function, although the object, if, for example, if we don't change A, then if we change B, then this will re-render, but the result looks like the same. It's the same object containing a property C with the same value. But however, although they look the same, because it's a new object, we create a new object. Again, the reference will be different. So it's like we create a new object in the heap memory, and then they contain the same content, but they are actually two different
And
objects.
if you have like a loop for 1 to a million, so we are gonna have memory leak problems, right? Because
Yes.
because even though we are avoiding re-render the child components, we are creating the not reference, but we are creating the object anyway in the heap. So
Yes.
we are gonna solve this in the future. So we're gonna show you how to avoid that as well. So all right, so let's try to use memo in that case and see if we are gonna avoid any re-render in the child component as well.
Let's first create a similar component, but this time we will just take an object, and then here we console log C, and then here we just simply show the value of object dot C. So we can use this component here. We just send in object equals to object. And yep, so now we see a plus 1. So yep, so C is, maybe make it clear that this is C is 4, right? So when we change A, you can see C updates, no problem, because every time it re-renders. But the problem is now we have this new object, which means if we change B, in theory, C will not re-render because A didn't change and C doesn't change.
Before you hit that, we already learned that it will re-render, right? Because we know that React.js works that way. So if we press B, C it will re-render, and that's what you need to catch. So React.js has a unnecessary re-render problem. So we are teaching you how to identify and how to solve it, right? I'm pretty much sure if you hit add B, C you will re-render. Could you please do that?
Yes. Yeah, you see,
that's
although A and C, they are not changing, C is still re-rendered. Right?
Yes.
So that is an unnecessary render, and we are going to use memo to fix this problem. So the way we use memo is that first we have to turn this into a function. So we can do use memo, and then we turn this into a function that returns this object. And now we need to provide the dependency list. So in this case, we know that this result depends on A. So whenever A changes, we want to recalculate this value. But if A doesn't change, we want to use the old result. We don't want to rerun this function and generate it again. Right? So if we do that, and also C is already a memoirs component. Now, if we add B, let's refresh it. If we add B, you see this time, because A is not changed, so we didn't run this function again, so we didn't return a new object. So the object reference still the same. So then C, the props to C remain the same. So C is now re-rendered.
I have no doubts about this. All right, so I think that's it for today. Okay, so in this video, we showed you how to identify unnecessary renders, what are unnecessary renders, and what to do in case you have identified unnecessary render. In the next video, we're going to talk about state management, and we're going to compare many libraries for state management, and we're going to show you how build one from scratch. Maybe, who knows? If you want to see we build one state library from the scratch, leave a comment in this video.
We're gonna also look at why in React we have this unnecessary re-renders problem. So in this video we know how to fix them when it happens, but it would be better to avoid them in the first place, right? So in the next video we're gonna show how we can avoid the unnecessary re-renders in React.
Alright, so if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, leave a comment below what else you want to learn in the upcoming video. Nali, thanks so much. It was a great pleasure to meet with you today, and I hope to see you again in the next video, okay?
Great, thank you. See you in the next video.
Take care.